I thank you all for your patience and apologize. We got started a little bit late. Okay, I'd like to call the delegation meeting to order. The Carroll County Convention. Stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. And Representative Comeau.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to invite public comment if there is anyone here who'd like to speak. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I have a public comment. For the record, I'm William Marsh, living at 742 Pleasant Valley Road, Wolfboro, which physically is in the town of Brookfield. On Wednesday, County Attorney Andruzzi sent me a file entitled 2018 plus 2019 year-to-date credit card, all departments. She'd obtained this through an RSA 91A request. I am about to email that and this statement to you, Melissa, for your minutes, and I wish it to be included in this public statement by reference so that it is available to the public. I believe her initial concern relates to 4 transactions on page 32 totaling $987.90, apparently incurred during a trip to Texas by the jail superintendent, a trip I understand from Commissioner Babson was not to cost the county anything. Specifically, there's a charge for dual process hearing BKS in the amount of $119.90, AJA Conference Reg-Henry in the amount of $460, AJA Member App-Batchelder in the amount of $48, AJA Conference Reg-Batchelder in the amount of $360. These 4 items were charged to line 6100.029, which is fees and services for the jail, and not to education and conferences. I believe this represents at least sloppy bookkeeping, if not misappropriation of funds. Reviewing this document, I find a number of other transactions inappropriately charged to 6100.029, which is fees and services for the jail. These include on page 4, $1,031.88 for multi-strain enzyme assigned to fees and services to the jail. On page 16, $2,435.42 for cleaning supplies assigned to fees and services at the jail. On page 21, $1,161.36 for a beverage dispenser assigned to fees and services at the jail. On page 29, $2,975.40 for paper towels, trash bags assigned to fees and services at the jail. On page 34, $439.99 for a laptop assigned to fees and services at the jail. And on page 36, $2,925.30 for simple green trash bags assigned to fees and services at the jail. The total amount charged to fees and services at the jail, which appear not to be fees and services at the jail, is $11,957.25. Going through this file, I noticed a number of other items charged to 6100.039 supplies at the jail, which seem to be unreasonably large. On page 4, there is an item for $1,888.50 for garbage bags assigned to the jail. On the same page is $2,094.80 for cleaning supplies assigned to the jail. On page 6, there is a charge for $880.85 for a rug with county seal assigned to supplies at the jail. It is my understanding that no one can locate this rug. And on page 13, there is an amount of $3,466.12 for brooms, dust mops, and soap assigned to supplies at the jail. I asked my high schooler to calculate how many brooms that would make for every inmate at the jail, and it was an impressively large number. I found one other item which seemed unreasonably large. On page 18, there is a charge for $1,328.25 for a toaster assigned to the operating supplies for the nursing home. At the Mountain View Nursing Home Subcommittee meeting on Friday, Howie told us he knew of no toaster which would have cost that much, and he promised to look into it and report back to us, which he reaffirmed to me this morning. Others may well find other questionable items in this document. I did not put a lot of time into reviewing the document, which is why I've asked Melissa to incorporate it into the minutes by reference so it's available to the public. Given the length of the agenda, I am not making any motions about this at this time. However, I asked the commissioners to look into this, to consider suspending the use of county credit cards until the matter is resolved, and that the item charges on county credit cards be put on our agenda for our next meeting so that if it is not resolved to our satisfaction, we can investigate the matter ourselves. I thank you very much.
Thank you. I think he's made a request that we have this remain on the next month's agenda, and also to have the commissioners look into it. And I think we should probably make a motion, make sure it is put on, or is there a motion to do so?
Not making a motion at this time.
Oh, you don't want to make a motion at this time?
There's
Okay.
enough on the agenda.
I know if it's this week. I am talking about the next meeting. Yes, Representative Avalani.
The citizen made the reference during public comment, so we can take those comments under advisement. I don't think there should be any back and forth with the member of the public.
Okay. Sorry. I'm still learning this job. So, all right, then we will take it under advisement, and we thank you very much for your, I wasn't thinking you were to the public, as a public member. Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Then I will close public comment. We have received the December 13th, 2019 meeting minutes, and we all should have received those. And at the beginning of our executive committee meeting, we did approve the executive committee section of the minutes. We should have those actually separately. If we do that, thank you, Melissa. Are there any errors or omissions on the minutes? Yes, Representative Tyser.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for my scheduling mishap and being late for the executive committee meeting. So I don't know exactly how you handled this, but the minutes of December 13, 2019 of the delegation, we should delete the section about after the continuing resolution motion right up until the meeting adjournment.
Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
might, the purpose for putting that section in this set of minutes is that it wasn't two separate meetings. It wasn't posted as two separate meetings. You recessed from your regular delegation and went into executive committee. It wasn't posted as two separate meetings. So for consistency, I just included it with these. But whatever you'd like to do, I'm just telling you why I did it that way.
I don't remember doing it differently. So, Representative Avalani.
Madam Chair, I move them to approve the minutes of December 13th as presented, which includes the executive committee meetings.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Thank you. Okay. I think we have with us today Henry Lipman. We are pleased and delighted that you were able to come. We've had a lot of questions and interest in finding out what's happening with the IDN funds and that. Yes, would you like to come up and sit here or sit on over here? So,
Actually, you can come right here. I'll move.
okay,
With me is Associate Commissioner Ann Landry.
okay.
Chris Shepherd from IDN 7, who is one of the program.
That's correct. Okay, well, you're welcome to all come up.
Yeah, just come over here.
And we have another seat here, we can slide around one. If you want to sit together. Thank you. Sure. The table is yours. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Again, I'm Henry Lippman. I want to make sure for the back, projecting loud enough. thank you for the opportunity to address the delegation here in County Commissioners. I think what I'd like to maybe do is cover 2 or 3 aspects of this. The first, in terms of the county contribution status among all the counties, what funding is coming forward, and then I think probably most importantly, what difference is it making in Carroll County and in the state as a whole. But just as a beginning point, let me just, for those who may not be familiar with the waiver, just cover that briefly, if that's okay. So in 2016, the state applied for a waiver from the federal government to be able to draw down additional matching funds to support physical health, behavioral health, and substance use disorder treatment, and trying to make those things work better together. And through that process to also add treatment capacity in the state and at the county levels to help introduce demonstration practices that might be good to share among and adopt, and also certain technology infrastructure to enhance communication so that care can be coordinated better for the betterment of the individual and the management of costs. And so in 2016, the state received this waiver. The waiver was approved through the legislative process, fiscal committee and such at the legislature level. And basically the waiver allowed for a 5-year period, which ends this December 31st, 2020, for the state to draw up to $30 million a year approximately in additional funding which it otherwise wouldn't typically draw. And we've not quite hit the 30 million on average over the 5 years. Basically, that additional money came from drawing on 2 sources. One, state monies that wouldn't typically be matchable under Medicaid, but the federal government said, because you're making these investments, we believe in the long run it's going to help bend the cost curve and improve treatment for beneficiaries. And then we looked at what other spending that the state's associated with at the county level. We saw that there was monies through our ProShare formula, which helps to fill in the gap between what the state ordinarily pays for a day of care in a nursing facility and what the actual costs are. And so as part of that, the first 18 months of the waiver, the feds allowed us to draw this money both on the state level and the county level indirectly, meaning we didn't need to necessarily work at a county level in terms of implementing it. The idea was that it would take some time to work with the counties to develop something, and as you know, it's been a bit of a challenge on a statewide basis to do so. But the fundamental issue in terms of what I hope you'll be able to see is this is, while it's difficult and not as predictable as we'd like, it's been a win-win all the way around for beneficiaries, for county government and the state. On the ProShare side of things, just reviewing Carroll County's ProShare payment, I believe, went up a little over $335,000 over 17 in the first year of the waiver where we did to do this. And I'll verify this number, but I was just sort of looking at the 2000, that was 17 compared to 19, and then 19 compared to 20, 17 compared to 20, I expect that your ProShare payment will be about $894,000 higher than it was in 17. Statewide, we were able to draw about $24 million more for nursing facilities statewide basis. Now that money that we were able to draw down is something that we should be able to continue past the life of this waiver, and that the state will not be seeking a donation in that part. Just one other thing about the donation, just need to clarify that the donation can't be a return of the monies that were drawn in match. It has to come through a different appropriation, because the money that was drawn on ProShare has already been matched. You can't match a match. And so we've been in 2018, it took to the very end of that state fiscal year when the ProShare payment was done to negotiate with the feds how we would work the matching of the county funds. We then asked the counties if they would make a contribution equal to about 50% of the amount equivalent of the increase that they got in their ProShare payment. Again, not the ProShare payment itself. We got a lot of feedback that the approach of having sort of the department sort of specify how it worked was not the way the counties would like it to be. And so this iteration in 2019, the county, the association that represents counties, Jim's last name?
New Hampshire Association.
Yeah, New Hampshire Association of Counties. Jim Monahan, sorry, I forgot his last name for a moment. Jim Monahan helped to try to facilitate sort of a county solving of how a donation could come about. The decision was to do it on a per capita basis, meaning that each Medicaid beneficiary per county, that each county would be asked to give an equal amount based on beneficiary numbers. I know that there are some counties that are still struggling with that decision among the Association of Counties, and most notably probably Rockingham County, if you're following that. We've been working with Rockingham County closely. The governor's been engaged. We have a meeting later with them later this week. And we believe that they will come through. I do think, as last time where we started out with a request that will be a lower number than what is out there today. I'm thinking probably if it was 100% of the request is probably going to be closer to 80, 81% of what will be a common amount. What we have strived to do here in terms of asking for donations is not to have, like in the school situation, we have donor counties, if you will. We're trying to keep it fair across the board, and so what we have to do is ultimately, I think, find a level that the counties are willing to contribute and which allows the waiver program to reach its end. At this point, what we're talking about is the monies from the 2019 transaction, if you will. There's one more transaction coming up in 2020, and that would be the end of it. Let me stop there, see if there are questions. That's sort of the high level, what the waiver is intended to do and the financing behind it. Let me stop there if there are any questions. For some of you, this is sort of a repetition of what I did last year, but again, it's a long time since we've last talked.
Give him a minute. Yes,
I'll just start it.
Comeau.
One of my concerns has always been how to track the money that the county sends. That has always been the concern. So what steps have been made to allay that concern?
So I think the county commissioners were concerned that money would be provided and then it wouldn't be matched and go out. I can represent that every dollar that has come in from the counties and all the money that we can match for 2018's transaction has gone out and deployed. The IDN 7 has received, I think in the first, if I have my figures correctly, about $1.2 million in the most first round of incentive payments recently, and that plus other work has allowed capacity to be expanded in the area here. But in terms of, you know, an audit of our books, it would prove that, you know, the matching that, the money that we received was definitely put out in match. We have no incentive to do that because in part, the IDNs are doing work and we're paying them, if you will, in arrears. And so they've made commitments in terms of following through and making sure that they can fulfill those. That's why we need to make sure it actually happens.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Henry, for coming to discuss this with us. The county funding for ProShare comes under my subcommittee, and we're preparing the budget for next year at this point in time. My understanding from what you're telling me is that instead of funding the full amount that was requested before, we should be funding 81%, is that correct?
So I'm suggesting that I could probably confirm that later in the week in terms of our discussions with Rockingham, but yes, I'm expecting that based on the discussion so far.
Okay.
And I just want to make sure that, and one of the issues that I expect you would raise is that the per capita approach, which seems like a reasonable aspect, if, you know, from the county's perspective, does have a shift in terms of who's contributing what. It does change. Last year, the contribution that you made net was about $81,000 at the requested amount. Based on the county per capita basis, where Carroll County represents a little over 4% of the 10 million request, ends up being a much higher number, right? So I just want to, what number you're working from? Are you working from the number of last year, or are you working from the number that the county delegations?
I'm working from the number that was requested by the county commissioners, so.
Okay.
It's
So I'm
a
not
bit
sure
more
what that
convoluted
number,
than that.
not sure what that number is, so, but what I have currently not discounted by the 81% on a per capita basis based on a 4.3%, 4.29 exactly, was $428,994. I don't know if that's the number that the county commissioners have talked to you about or not.
That number again, please.
$428,994, of which I expect it to be about 81% of that number, around 345, 347 range for
Thank you.
2019. Which affects your 2020, I think. What do you think?
Are there any further questions?
Yes.
Yes, Representative Bucco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Lippman, thank you for coming up, and thanks for being here today. Can you give us the dollar amount for each year that the county has contributed to this?
So there are two contributions that Carroll County, one has been made, which was the 81,000,
81,443.
81,443, based on the 18 transaction. Prior to that, it was sort of just a lump sum draw that we were able to make against all county unmatched, and before we had a chance to work with the counties on this matter. So there's only been one contribution that's directly been made to the effort so far. This is the second request. We would like there to be a third request, and that would be the end of it. And the enhanced ProShare would continue going on forward for you to use in ways that make most sense for the county.
So, just to follow
Yes,
up on that,
Representative
the first year that the department requested 50% was on 166,000.
Right.
Did we pay that?
No. The amount that the counties ultimately agreed to, which funded us just under $8 million in total from the counties. The way the formula worked the first time, it was like 90, it's close to 100,000 when you brought it down to 30%, and you deducted the additional NFQA tax, the bed tax if you want a nursing home. That's where it netted out to the 81,449 was the ultimate monies that came.
Thank you. So simple, I don't know why.
Are there any further questions?
Yes, Representative Avalon.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you everyone for coming today.
Given that there'll be no more contribution, no more asked contributions from us, how are the IDNs going to be funded in the future?
So just to clarify on the asks, we would have one more ask based on the 2020. But in terms of where this is going, as legislators, you're aware, I think, of a number of different things that are happening at a state level. The monies that are coming in for the opioid issue, the monies that have come in for this. There are other monies that support other infrastructure like the public health networks and things. You know, at a governor's office level and leadership level, we realize that these funding sources are sort of drying up, if you will, and that we need to put together other things and potentially reorganize some of the things that we're doing today. We have identified some opportunities, but we haven't solved the whole issue yet. We'll need to solve it as part of the next budget cycle, which is not too far off. But as of today, we don't have, you know, putting our cards on the table, we don't have a full answer to that. But we do feel that the work that's being done, there's a lot of valuable aspects to it that have put real people into the communities that are helping to, you know, it's fine to have the money, but if you don't have people to do the treatment, that's an issue. That have connected the hospitals and the providers in a way that they know what's going on in different places, and there are things that we need to sustain because they've proven to be effective in reducing you know, unnecessary ER visits or rehospitalizations, and you know, just basically access to care for treatment.
If I may, Director. At a very programmatic level, speaking about our partners working directly here in Carroll County, I can tell you that this waiver program is a delivery system reform program. So effectively what we're asking our partners to do is change the wheels on a bus that's currently moving down the road, right? They're currently providing some level of care to their patients and clients, and we're asking them to change the way they deliver that care so that it's more efficient and provides better quality care that's better coordinated. And so in a very real way, a lot of the work the IDN is funding is about helping those partners work better together and to build and cement relationships that will sustain beyond the life of the waiver program. So programmatically here in Carroll County, we see really clear partnerships being firmed up. We see infrastructure in place, as the director alluded to, from a technology perspective that allows organizations to communicate in secure ways, respectful of confidentiality, that haven't occurred in the past or that they've struggled with in the past. And so there are components of this work that will live on because we have changed the way they're doing business. At the same time, there's work at the state level to figure out how to continue to reimburse this or fund this evolution. But we're really talking about an evolution of the healthcare delivery system, and your local partners here in Carroll County have stepped in a very committed fashion without necessarily having a ton of funding behind them, and instead the promise of work that's going to continue amongst one another in a relational way. So there is a long-standing legacy that's already been firmed up because of the good work that people are doing in county already.
I would just add to affirm that from a state level, we're working actively on this at a senior leadership level and with the governor's office to ensure that we find the funding streams to continue the IDN infrastructure. There's so much value in Carroll County across the state that's been created, and we don't want it to walk away from it. We just understand that the ask is not going to be from the counties. The structuring will be from other sort of grants or funding and creating more synergies of the doorways, the public health networks, and other regional delivery networks, and looking at optimal use of those funds. But we are committed to sustaining the infrastructure.
I just had one quick question. In Carroll County, are we able to get into more rural areas? In the past, it's kind of been centered around the population centers.
Sure.
Are we able to reach out into the rural?
So we have a number of partners in Carroll County who are providing primary care already to patients who are both in those more populated centers and in the rural communities. One of the things that's been really exciting for us to watch from that kind of 50,000-foot view at the IDN office, is the deepening of recovery supports for individuals who are struggling with substance use disorder. And we've seen a dramatic increase in the number of recovery support workers in Carroll County, and the way that they are now working closely with primary care practices across the county to respond to those sort of social support needs that come along with the clinical treatment that folks are receiving. So there are some components there that are underway.
Thank you. Representative Marsh?
Yes, thank you very much. I want to preface by saying I do appreciate the good work the IDNs are doing, and the increase in substance use treatment in Carroll County was well needed. I am merely trying to wrap my head around the budget because this is my subcommittee. My understanding is that the commissioners requested from us under line item 4102.074 $166,000, matching what was requested last year. And my understanding from what you were telling me is that because of this change to a per capita model, you would be requesting 81% of $428,994 for that line, which would amount to $347,485.14. Is that correct?
That is correct. In terms of the per capita approach, I just want to clarify is what the county association among their membership asked to do it to make it so that there wasn't sort of a donor kind of
So I
concept.
think we all understand what you're asking for.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Representative Bucco?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I have this document from North Country Health Consortium that lists the integrated delivery networks funds used in Carroll County. It says from January 2007 to present. I don't know when present was. There's no date on here. But is this the list of all the other providers that are participating?
Well, if I could pass this over to you, I don't know if you're dealing
I
with
think you're
older-
looking at an older
I
version
think
of
that's
the
the older
report.
version. This one as, by October 2018, it was approximately 1.2 million were provided to IBM 7 partners directly working in Carroll County. It's about, and it shows on the map all of the,
Yeah.
We can send that to you and you can distribute it electronically.
That would be helpful.
And that's a copy of the report that was distributed ahead
Okay,
of your
thank you.
December
I think I
13th.
might have that somewhere over
yeah,
here.
I think.
In answer to your question though, Representative Pico, that's not the entire list of partners in Carroll County. That is the list of partners in Carroll County who requested a portion of the incentive payments to do some of the work that they're doing. So as incentive payments are distributed across our region, we have active partners, 39 partners in Region 7 as a whole, who are doing this work without requesting additional funding in order to accomplish it. So that is not a complete list of Carroll County partners, but we can provide one to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Avalon? Oh, Representative Butler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So on this per capita basis, and the request for $347,000, there is an expectation that that amount in service and capacity will come back to our county. Is that how that per capita is being determined?
It should be at least double that number. Because that's the contributions that the counties make. We can then draw a matching amount as well as the state amount. And so I think last year we were able to put out, based on the 18 contribution, around 22 million statewide to all the IDNs.
And how did that compare to what was contributed by the counties?
So last year, the counties, I think, was about 7.8 million in total. That was contributed by the counties at that 30% approach. And this year, if it's at 81, it'd be about 8.1 million.
Thank you.
Are you ready for? Yes.
Chair, thank you all for being here. The budget that was handed to us by the commissioners, as Representative Marsh has been discussing, showed that our pro-share funds for 2019 was a little bit over $2 million.
Right.
But that the pro-share funds for 2020 would decrease to 1.6 million. You think it'll be more in line with the amount that we got last year or more?
So let me just ask a question here, make sure we're comparing apples to apples. In terms of state fiscal years, the county on a...
We're on a calendar year.
You're in a calendar year.
Yes.
So I think that's,
Yeah.
the number I was quoting was based on that 2 million number. It's going to vary based on the cost variance that the nursing facility experiences with its Medicaid. But I mean, I think if all things being equal, it would stay equal. If you have fewer Medicaid or better cost experience, it can go up or down.
But probably similar to 2019.
I'm concerned to make that full
Yes, right.
representation, but I think, you know, I think it probably would, you know, and Howard's, I know Howard Chandler's here, he may have a better sense of what the operation is looking like, but in terms of how that cost gap changes from year to year, relatively small facility compared to, say, Hillsborough County, you could have more volatility.
We're moving toward a greater Medicaid percentage than we have in the past, so it should be favorable to us. Although Henry, if I might, could I ask, what would we need to do to ever be a pro-share A group as opposed to the B group?
So what Howard is referring to is that, and this gets into a little bit more of the weeds, which I'll be happy to cover. So when the waiver was agreed to, there was a concept that all nursing facilities would use the same methodology, comparing the payments that they receive from the state for the services against their costs. As it turns out, when it was all put together, and this is about the time I entered the picture into being the Medicaid director, that turned out to be an issue in terms of by doing it all that way, based on how certain nursing facilities' cost of payments compared, the net result would have been pro-share would have gone down for all of the state, as well as we wouldn't have had money to fund the waiver. So basically what we had was a cost offset going on, as particularly Hillsborough County, just because of the nature of their large facility and their, if you will, economies of scale. If we kept them on that basis, it would have caused a large offset to reduce all pro-share funding in the state. And so what we were able to negotiate, why it took till the last week of June in 2018, was to break the two groups of nursing facilities into two groups. Basically, it was Hillsborough was the major issue that we had, but also Belknap and Sullivan County nursing facilities, and we were able to get a different demonstration in their instance. That methodology was good for basically 18 and 19. We're now currently in negotiations on the pro-share 1 methodology, which is the Hillsborough, Belknap, and Sullivan one, where we're probably going to have to make some changes on what that looks like. And we're still working through that issue with them, but you know, generally the CMS did us if you will, a favor to create the two groupings so that it could be a win for all. And you know, I think that it has caused some tension among counties, that there's been some disparity in terms of how good. I mean, I think at least everybody went up around at least 50%. Some went up more than that, and I think that's been some of the issue in terms of reconciling it, but there was really no way to avoid that unless we had everybody have a loss and then not be able to fund the program. So I guess the short answer, Howard, is I don't see their ability to do that, and I expect probably pro-share 1 will look less lucrative in the future.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much. It's been very informative.
We appreciate that, and we'll be sure to stay in touch with you in terms of how things work out with the other counties. Because again, we want to try to do this in a way where we have in common among every county in terms of what they're willing to contribute. And we appreciate your working with us to help people in your county. And I also, just in closing, say that you know, some of what's going on in other IDNs, you know, the way the IDNs are organized, people consume healthcare, not necessarily according to county lines, so there's some benefit of the investment that happens statewide that I think, things that happen at the state hospital where unfortunately some people end up being from all counties, that there are things that are working to help that situation as well.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Thank
Representative
you.
Coe.
Mr. Lippman, I'm sorry, just one more question. So we're in the budget process, and you are recommending that we use the number that you gave us today
Yes.
to put into the budget. And when will we know what that number really is going to be?
I'm hoping that I can give you that number, if not next week, shortly thereafter. We have a meeting Friday with the delegation, similar meeting with the delegation in Rockingham County, and hopefully we'll have a good read by that meeting. But I think that's probably a pretty solid number at this point.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner?
If I may, just a clarification, that 130, is that for the whole IDN 7, or is that just for Carroll County? Because there are other counties involved in IDN 7 besides Carroll.
That's the contribution that we're talking about is Carroll County, reflective of the per capita, the Medicaid enrollees that are in Carroll County. That's what that's attributable to. So that's, since people don't consume healthcare just along county lines, I think the way that they decided to approach it was to say, let's look at the Medicaid covered population in each county and allocate the amount that we're looking for based on that per capita basis.
That's a tremendous increase.
Yeah. And I acknowledge that, and I would say that the perspective among the counties, where some counties were feeling that the last formula had, if you will, donor counties, if you will, to other counties. And we, as the department, are open to any other way that the counties among themselves want to do that, but that was the decision that came out of the association. And I appreciate that the number is larger here. I do point out, I think that you'll see a substantial increase in what is your upcoming pro-share payment, and I'm sorry, I can't do more than that in terms of addressing it.
I thought you just said that the pro share in the future was going to be less lucrative.
No, that was the one where Howard was asking for the pro-share 1 group. Carroll County's in what we call the pro-share 2 group, which is the majority of the nursing facilities. The methodology, which is claiming on the basis of certified public expenditures based on cost reports, that I don't expect to change at all. Only to the extent that your volumes and your costs change specifically to your county. I see your ride through pro-share being much more stable.
Yes,
May I
Representative
ask one
Marsh.
further question? Thank you, Henry, for taking my question. I wanted to clarify the meaning of per capita here, and from what you just said, I think what you meant, that per capita means per capita of Medicare,
Yes.
Medicaid
beneficiaries, as opposed to per capita of population in
Correct.
general, meaning that counties like Carroll County, which have a much higher than average Medicaid population rate, will also be paying a much higher percentage of this contribution.
in terms of the exact percentage, it's 4.29% of beneficiaries. If comparing it to, like, for example, Merrimack County is 11.51, based on your point being that there's a higher percentage of Medicaid in generally the rural counties like Belknap and Carroll and
Yes.
Grafton as a percentage of the entire population.
So it's not a per head count.
It is per beneficiary, per
Medicaid.
Medicaid.
Benefit. Which it aligns with how part of the county administrators decision association was also, because that's how the incentive funding is distributed, is per Medicaid, per capita, per Medicaid life in each county as well. So the way we push out money is how they align that as well. Again, as Henry said, we really left it to the counties to share, and they decided that this was the most equitable way in their perspective to have the counties contribute. But our goal was to get to the 10 million, to get matched to the 20 million, to get to the 30 million to fund the program.
We understand that.
Yeah.
Are there any further questions? Well, we thank you very much for coming. It's been very helpful. We appreciate it. Shift left.
How are you?
Okay. Can I call us back? We are still in session. We are still in session. The next item on the agenda is a report from the finance office to get an update, because I'm sure Kathy wants to get back to work. So after Kathy, we'll take a 5-minute break.
There's not much to say, actually. They have our data, and they have a month they're going to be spending working on converting our data and then putting it to the updates to get us up to speed on the software update. So that takes them about a month. They just got the information last week.
Okay, so we're still using our server at this point?
Oh,
or-
yes. Yep. It's going to be a while before we can get off the server.
Okay. Yes, Representative Cordelli.
3 or 4 weeks ago, I wrote to the commissioners with my concerns about how this is going forward, and I'd just like to read some of those points for the record. Based on my 30-plus years in information systems and management, my questions to the commissioners included, do you know what the status is? What is the timeline for the migration and module implementation? Migration is critical to your operations and preparation for migration. Who will be responsible for testing and validating the migration and then sign off on the cutover to the cloud-based system? Will there be any new training on the functionality, since there is an upgrade in software versions with the move to the cloud? Will that be left to one person? I strongly advise that an implementation team be formed. All staff will be dealing with the new purchasing module, and everyone must be aware and involved. I suggest a flow chart of the current purchasing workflow, and then a workflow for the purchasing system after implementation of the purchasing module. The contract with Avenue calls for 2-hour webinar training for each of the new modules. What about training for departmental access to the base general ledger system? Who will be doing that training? When will that take place? When will access be provided? Will 1 2-hour training session for the purchasing module be sufficient? And I believe there will be many questions related to that, as it impacts how the county purchases goods and services. For instance, we just heard about credit card purchases. How will that process be handled when we now have a purchasing module? What will happen with credit card purchases? My final point was, do not underestimate the organizational impact and need for management of this project by the commissioners. And I would ask the commissioners to move forward with some of those recommendations, because it is a significant process and project that they are undertaking, and they need hands-on involvement.
So, I would question, do we have any, that's why I was asking again, I think I put on here about the consultant progress. We had someone who was coming in and reviewing and looking at how that office was going. Do we need additional support during this process time?
At this time, I'll refer to our treasurer because he's been in contact with Scott Egan on a pretty regular basis. Scott's been working with Kathy. I do want to answer just one question. One of the benefits of having this purchasing system is going to be the elimination of a lot of the credit card use. I think we've pretty much agreed, the commissioners, that the only credit card use will be the travel, right? And if it's something that they pay when they're traveling.
Well, we'll have that, but I'm not sure that it's gonna eliminate credit card purchases, and you know that's been a bugaboo of mine for 6 years, that the credit card system around here just doesn't work.
So we are hoping that, to answer your question, that the purchasing module will have a big impact on that.
I think that's not the issue. What I think I was hearing is that the transition is going to be, there's going to be an impact from that in time, energy, and maintaining systems going. My question was, and I think what he was referring to is, do we have adequate support in the office and planning for this switchover? Because it can be very, very difficult.
Well, I think
So-
Scott has been addressing that.
Yes,
so
can you give us a
So if I
report?
may, Madam Chair,
See what Scott, he'll explain.
yeah, if I may, I have been in contact with Scott, and he is working with Kathy. One of his initial recommendations was to implement the purchase order system, which I think this new module will actually have for us once we get it up and running. The Avenue implementation schedule, we do have a schedule of how things are going to happen on a weekly basis. However, I think there was a slight delay in one of the pieces of equipment that arrived was damaged or something. Kathy can elaborate on that.
Well, it wasn't, the box that they sent was, they sent with a key, which shouldn't have had a key with it, because you can't, not real secure if you send something and take the key to the outside. We had to just work through a few little hitches in the giddy up, basically, and that sort of stuff. I had a delay getting the data backed up because there was a problem. I had to do it after hours, so it's a 3-hour minimum process, so I had to wait until everybody was out of the system. So, and then we had a holiday or two, and so there was a few little minor delays, not very big at all, but.
So in this process,
Representative Alani has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could we just get a little background on who Mr. Egan is?
I'm sorry, Scott Egan is a CPA with, I forget the name, Polanski and Plotzik and
Anderson.
Anderson, thank you, in Concord. And he was recommended to us by a number of people. The commissioners interviewed him, along with some other folks, and they felt that this would be a good person to assist our finance department and generally overall. And so that's who he is. He comes highly recommended, so.
Thank you.
One of his other recommendations was in this process, which is still being put together, was to have a stakeholders group, if you will. Excuse me. Email group created so that a brief update can be sent to this group on a regular basis after the status calls. Initially, I think it was going to be the county administrator, myself, and Kathy, and maybe one other person. I'm not sure at this point who that's going to be, but I think that's an ongoing process. One of the things that I have said overall here, I think a lot of people in the room have heard me say this, it's going to be painful at first, because in this situation, you still have to maintain your daily work schedule. And yet you still have to do training, and you still have to do the attendance to the calls and so forth. So it's going to be painful for a while. I can't tell you how long, but it's going to be painful. But once we get beyond that stage, things are going to start to work a lot easier. So I do ask everybody's indulgence, because this process is moving forward, although be it a little on the slow side at this point. There is discussion about the county's workflow and the payroll systems, human resources. You know, some of the areas of concern with the payroll company are being cleared up at this point, is that correct, Kathy? So we are making some progress on it. But to come back full circle and say, do we have enough people on board to do all this? I would err on the side that we can always use more help. More help is expensive.
Representative Cordelli.
Thank you. I respectfully disagree a little bit with that in that I do not believe you need a group to receive updates about what is going on. You need that. The commissioners need to be informed continually at every meeting, have to have a report. But I believe there needs to be an implementation team. There has to be an implementation team to make decisions. It cannot be left in just one person. It affects every department, everything that goes on with the purchasing of goods and services in this county. It cannot be left to one person. There has to be an implementation team to make decisions and outline the new workflow of how goods and purchases are to be made.
I think that, if I may, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I think that that's what Scott Egan has recommended. I use the term email group. I think implementation team is exactly what he's talking about here. It's a group of individuals at the county level that are going to be working to put this process in place and making sure that things are done correctly.
And what would be the makeup of that team?
Well, the original makeup was the county administrator, Kathy, myself, and one other person, yet to be named.
Representative Cordelli?
I would strongly suggest that departmental representation is needed. They're going to be the ones on the ground having to deal with this. And they need to be aware of everything that's going on because it affects their daily lives. It can't be left to, just hearing about it in the hallways, what's going on. How many departments are aware of, what's going on? Some I know are, but I know some are not.
Once again, if I may, Madam Chair, this, as I said, is an ongoing process. I don't disagree with what Representative Cordelli is saying. I think it's important that the communications level certainly is stepped up at the county. In fact, there is a
1 o'clock meeting.
1 o'clock meeting on Wednesday of the department heads, which I've asked for, to go over some of these things to make sure that everybody's informed about what's going on and what potentially is going to be happening, and get some input from them also. So that process is ongoing, as I'm saying. I can't report that it's been done because it hasn't been done yet, but the process is ongoing for it.
Thank you. Representative Avalon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Have the commissioners, sorry, in the past, we've used contract employees for certain tasks in the county complex. Have the commissioners looked into possibly bringing somebody with a financial background or a transition team or the IT people to bring them in on a temporary basis to get through this transition?
I think that's part of what, when we contracted with Scott Egan to assess what was needed, what was going on, was the commissioner's thoughts that this change is coming and what else is needed, what is going to be needed. And since he does this on a regular basis, we've gotten a couple of reports, not so much dealing with the transition, but in getting ready for the transition, I believe. Kathy can probably tell you more about the direction that he's helping her to go in.
He's not actually giving me much feedback, so he's still talking to me. You guys are getting reports, I haven't seen them, I have no idea what he's thinking.
You didn't get a copy of the report?
No.
I will see that you get a copy of the report today.
Representative Avalon?
Just to follow up, Madam Chair. would it be something that the commissioners would be interested in doing moving forward? Having a part-time help on a contracted basis to help push this transition through a little further? Because relying on one or two people is not in the best interest of the county or the administration of the county.
And this is budget season, this is our chance to, if we need to do something, to provide for it.
I'm sorry, I can't hear what anybody's saying.
I was just saying it would be financially expensive, and Mr. Babson said it would be financially expensive, but it would be greatly, what was the word?
Probably gain from it.
It would be a gain. But the finances, as you know, as you've heard earlier today, are really tight, so something like that, we'd have to come to you for the financing of it.
Follow up?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We used that, I think, for the Registry of Deeds when it was trying to go online. We brought in somebody to help scan and do whatnot. I think in this type of a case, it would be helpful to the business office to have an extra set of hands that is familiar with doing transitions and processes like this to help Kathy along, to help the other employees along on a temporary basis. Given that it would be temporary, it would be cheaper than hiring another employee at a full-time rate plus benefits.
Representative Cordelli, did you have a follow-up?
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Representative Comeau.
We don't have the authority to tell the commissioners to do anything, but I would suggest that they officially create this transition team and put it all together and then go forward. Because it looks like that's what's lacking. That's what I would just advise as the delegation.
Any change is confusing. Yes.
I do have one follow-up, I guess. As Representative Avalani pointed out, it is budget season. Along those lines, I'd be interested in seeing from the commissioners a copy of the timeline that they have for this project.
Okay. Yes, Representative Butler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Relative to bringing in contract assistance, my only concern would be that these people know what they're doing, and I would assume that through Mr. Egan and our treasurer, that we can find people who are competent and going to be worth their expense.
If I may,
Yes.
in my experience, in doing similar things over the years and my background, really needs what I term as a project manager to take charge of the whole thing. And to make sure everybody's got the communications that they need, both input and output. I do have the timeline, although it's not very copyable because it's black and white, but I'll photocopy it, and if anybody wants to see it, they can have a copy too.
Yes, Representative Ticehurst.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would Mr. Egan be functioning somewhat as a project manager?
Actually, I don't believe so. He's sort of a global overview of helping the entire financial area in itself.
And follow-up?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And would one component of that be this project?
Yes, but he wouldn't be the person, the go-to person for it.
Okay.
Yes, Representative
Thank you, Madam
Burrows.
Chair. So who do you, thanks for taking the question, who would you see as functioning, excuse me, in that role of project manager?
Whoever the commissioners decide, I mean, look for somebody else. I feel that it has to have that level of input to make this thing happen and make it happen correctly. Just my opinion, that's all.
I agree. Save us a lot of grief after. Yes, Representative Woodcock.
Thank you, Mr. Madam Chair. Just a clarity in my brain here. Mr. Egan, if I recall, was the dialogue about hiring a contractor was to overlook the entire financial process because of the concerns the commissioners have had, the delegation have had over a long period of time. So his connection to this is just by happenstance.
Right.
Okay. So we really can't put him off as the person who's leading the show here. Right. So we have a show with no leader on this transition.
Well, you do have
Project
time.
manager.
That's what project manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
No, all right.
Yes, Representative Bucco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in these minutes from December 13th, it says that the vendor will be conducting on-site training under the approved contract 2019 to 2021.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
I don't know who I'm directing this to. This is where Scott Egan's name and plastic and Sanderson comes in over here. But you're just saying that he's not a part of Avenue.
Right.
No.
No,
But there is but the on-site, but the contract includes on-site training.
Yes.
Okay.
But training is not for this one.
No.
It's when a team.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Are there, yes, Representative Cordell.
My recollection of the contract is that it is not on-site training to be provided by Avenue. It's via webinar.
Right, but that doesn't give us the hands-on to pull it all
No, no.
together as to do our transition. I think it would certainly behoove us to look ahead rather than cry later and try to sort it out when things get messed up, because it's a big process. Yes,
One other question, actually, if I may, thank you. To the commissioners, when the movement to Avenue was created, the process, did you folks budget in the need for a project manager or someone to oversee the piece, or you just went out and did the project?
No, we have always had the same company. The company is upgrading, if you will,
Right.
our system. And Kathy's been working with the company to do this upgrade, which has been going on now 9 months, is it?
Yeah, I've been working to get to this point for a long time, but yes, finally we got the money to do it, and we have the infrastructure here to be able to do it, so, yes, the software isn't changing, and we're getting the newest version, but it's the basic same software. And then we're adding the 2 new modules, which will be really nice.
So the only new thing that's different will be those 2 modules. The rest of it is just a normal upgrade, like your computer at home. You know, every now and then you have an upgrade from Microsoft or,
My computer at home regularly crashes, that's the problem. So, I'm just concerned about the county where there doesn't seem to be that, as Representative Cordelli talked about, that plan for migration and leadership and that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Representative Cordelli, did you?
I'll pass.
You passed. Are there any other questions regarding the transition and the change? Okay, thank you. Hearing none, then I will close this section. We will take a 5-minute break and restart at 9, so some of us have been here almost 2 hours. Okay, I'm just going to call us back to order, and I'm going to just skip quickly and let the Treasurer Costello, I'm going to go to number 9 on the agenda, so Representative Treasurer Costello can stay. So we are going to move to number 9, and then I'll go back, just so you don't have to sit through everything.
Update on the TAN.
Update on the TAN. Do you have something you would like to share on that?
I'm sorry, I got 2 conversations going, I apologize.
That's okay.
So, update on the TAN.
We're back in session. Yes, so it's time for the update on the TAN.
Update on the TAN.
You want to tell us about it, then we have a question.
What I would like the delegation to do is give approval so that I can go to our financing institution for a TAN of up to $17 million. This is the same numbers we used last year. I've already talked with our bank. They are pretty well set with whatever information they need, with one exception, and we'll be doing that, and that is the cash flow projection. I even have potentially a rate. I'd rather not say just yet, it's not decided, so. But I do need the approval of the delegation with the certified minutes so that I can move forward with this transaction. I'm trying to get this done a little sooner each year. Not that we need it, but I would rather have it in place just in case. There was some discussion earlier by some other folks about potentially a cash flow problem. That was an error on my part. At that time, we had about $6 million available, and we had a couple of big payments we had to put out because of the insurance issue. You may recall, we saved a lot of money on the insurance last year. The downfall of that was beginning of this year, we had to make big insurance payments for this year. So, from a cash flow standpoint, I don't think we got an issue, but I do want to get the TAM in place ASAP.
Representative Spicer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are we talking about a line of credit for this?
Same process we've always had, the line of credit. We only pay for what we use when we use it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Babalani?
Madam Chair, I move to authorize the county treasurer to borrow up to $17 million in anticipation of taxes in 2020.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made by Representative Babalani and seconded by Representative Marsh. Is there any further discussion? Representative Butler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand you don't want to say what the percentage is, but is it favorable?
Very.
Thank you.
The good thing is that we have a tremendous working relationship with our institution. And on top of that, we managed to push them a little, so, yeah. Which is another reason why I'd like to get this done as soon as possible.
Thank you. Representative Cordelli?
Yes, just in relation to that, during our subcommittee meeting, we did have a significant increase based on our discussions at that point. So based on your work with the lending institution, if there is any change to that, the sooner the better for budgeting purposes.
I agree. The only thing that I would like to add is it's going to determine our usage, which is going to affect that dollar figure in the budget. And I had asked to have that increased based on what we actually spent last year. While that rate is down some, I do think we can see a bit of a savings, but I wouldn't want to cut it too much just in case. Remember, it's a two-tiered transaction. The non-taxable amount is at a higher rate.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, then we will do a roll call vote.
Representative Ticehurst?
Yes?
Clerk will vote yes. Representative Bucco?
Yes.
Representative Butler?
Yes.
Representative Cordelli?
Yes.
Representative Nelson?
Yes.
Representative Comeau?
Yes.
Representative Knark?
Yes.
Representative Marsh?
Yes.
Representative Burrows?
Yes.
Representative McDonald?
Yes.
Representative Woodcock?
Yes.
And the chair.
Yes.
13-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Representative Nelson?
What do you need to have this, do you
Thank
need
you.
something right now, or how do you
I
have
need
this?
a signed document that I'm going to have the county seal put on that I can send to the institution. If you could sign, I believe there's a statement that's already written out.
If I might, I can now send the statement downstairs to be printed on county letterhead. If the chair could please stop in the office and sign it later.
I will do that.
Thank you.
I will do that. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go back now to number 7. The Rules of Evidence and Procedure, the Personnel Committee. I did ask, did you?
Everyone has a copy.
Everybody has a copy. Okay, these were approved by the Personnel Committee to be used in the, to be used in an upcoming hearing. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody had a copy of that. And to see if there are any questions regarding it. Thank you. Just in case there are any questions about it, this is the procedure that we have come up with and approved at our last meeting. And it provides an overview of how, thank you. It provides an overview of how a committee hearing would take place and how evidence would be submitted. So, yes, Representative Cordelli.
Thank you. I was just wondering if we should specify right up front that these committee hearings are public hearings, that they are not non-public, but they're to be conducted in public.
I think, doesn't that count on what is requested? The hearing that we have before us was a requested public hearing, but I
Right.
think that the procedure would follow if it were a private, if it were non-public. Yes.
The RSA that you cite, Roman 3, says specifically the employee may request in writing a public hearing on such notice or suspension. So I don't see anything about having a non-public meeting of the Personnel Committee. The only difference would be if the employee was covered by a collective bargaining agreement, and then rules of the collective bargaining agreement would hold.
Yes, Representative Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That was my understanding as well when I first started learning about this process. And what I discovered was that RSA 2810, et cetera, does specify that the certain employees have a right to a public hearing. Unfortunately, as is the case in many situations, there are also other statutes that apply. And we did have Attorney Bryden from the County Attorney's Office come in to help us with this. And I did object in the beginning, but I later came to understand that there are also rules of administrative procedure, I think it's called, under another statute that do apply, where it would be possible to have part of the proceedings done in non-public. However, the person who had called for the meeting, the public hearing, would have a right to be there as well. And I did not like this, but I've come to the conclusion that it's probably accurate. I'm not a lawyer, obviously. And I also want to point out, in case anybody goes down this line of reasoning much further, another thing to keep in mind is that in one of the statutes, it does define the Personnel Committee as a commission. And so other laws that state the commission shall, or the commission shall not, or whatever it states, that does not refer to the Board of Commissioners, that refers to the Personnel Committee. And I'm sorry that it's confusing, that's my best explanation.
I found there are a lot of cross-references, because I know in some of the witness areas that we talked, there are some other statutes that apply if the witness would be deeded a 91A for retaliation or for a certain situation in testifying. And I think it came up in somewhere else in here too. Is an issue. Representative Woodcock?
Just a question, Madam Chair, thank you. On the third line of the document you distributed this morning, okay, so this is specifically for, or only for suspensions, is that correct? It says concerning the suspension of county employees. Doesn't talk about any other regulations. So this document evidence is for only those hearings on suspension?
At this point, yes?
Madam Chair, I believe that's an error on the part of the committee, and I thank the representative for bringing that up, because the law does, the 2810 does cover suspension, termination, and something else I can't remember right now. So I think the committee would do well to take a look at that.
Probably take that.
And just to continue with that, it's been important, and I have been stressing to the committee and reminding the committee that these rules are adopted by the committee by law, but they are adopted for any case that comes before them, not for a specific case.
That's a good note, thank you. Representative Bucco?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the beginning, you said that these were the rules that the Personnel Committee came up with. That sounds like you just pulled them out of the air. Aren't there
No,
RSAs
no,
that
we've been
guide this?
working on it, no. We based it on a process that has been used in another county at the beginning, but we made major changes to it. It gave us an outline to follow, and we wanted to make sure that we were matching the RSAs to protect the rights of the people, the rights of the individual who is coming for a hearing, and all involved, because there are usually two sides of these issues. So we wanted to partially make it easy enough for somebody to understand, because all people will not have a lawyer. They may have a lawyer, and in some cases it's probably recommended they do if they can, but some people may not. They might be pro se, and so we tried to keep it worded that it will be usable for people to make sure we can protect the rights.
Thank you. And just to follow up, as far as the, since it's gonna be, since these hearings may affect some, an employee's reputation, that should be done under 91A, under non-public.
Right, there are sections, I said that there are sections that in 91A, I think we've got it.
It does say under 91A that it can be non-public unless the employee requests it to be public.
I think it's during the, see, under the testimony, on the bottom of the number 3, where it says, should testimony be sought on either side from witnesses who are not parties to the proceedings and do not wish to testify in public, that testimony may be heard in non-public session, such as to protect the rights of a whistleblower from retaliation or whose own employment may be threatened.
Yes.
And then it just says 91A3 defines the right for meetings to be open.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Representative Butler.
Just a comment that has baffled me from the beginning of knowing that you've been working hard to put this together, that there is no consistent practice or policy that every delegation or should be able to access. When I asked the question, the Attorney General's office said, we don't do counties.
They could at least have found it. That's what I was just trying to ask. There's got to be something standard.
The Association of Counties, I suppose, can give you some support and access, but each county has to develop its own rule. And that is just unfortunate, I think. And I hope that once your rules of evidence and procedure are completely defined and approved, that you will share it with the other counties.
That's a good idea. Yes, Representative Avalon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. While we were going through this, that was our hope moving forward, that it could be an outline for future delegations, at least in Carroll County.
Yes, Representative Ticehurst.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to preface my comments by saying that these rules were drawn up in a completely democratic and appropriate way. However, I object strongly to these rules. I did not vote for these rules. I believe these rules are incomplete and do not lay out a good structure for assuring that the process is followed and documented from beginning to end. So thank you.
Are there any other comments? Thank you. I think we will, the idea of the concerning the suspension of Carroll County employees, I think is a good catch, and I appreciate that. So, thank you.
And I'm sorry, Madam
Yes.
Chair.
Yes.
So has the Personnel Committee now approved this process?
We have approved them.
Thank you.
It's been approved. We probably will make that change to remove the word suspension. I think that was a throwback from the beginning. So, thank you. Yes.
Madam Chair, I would suggest that we needed to add the other words in rather than removing the suspension, because it tells under what circumstances these policies apply.
Okay. we'll look at the RSA and make sure that
The section is discharge or suspension from employment.
discharge or suspension. Thank you. All right, moving on, I would like to move us into non-public session for just a short period of time. We will deliberate and talk, we'll probably be able to reopen, but for just a few minutes, I would like to go into non-public session just for the delegation.
Point of order,
Yes?
can you tell us the reason that we're going into non-public
Yes.
session?
Yes, it is to discuss RSA number 91A3, matters which if discussed in public would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the public body, unless such person requests an open meeting. This exemption shall extend, and so on, to include any application or assistance of tax abatement. It's not
Thank you.
those. But it is to protect, because I would just like to be able to talk to the delegation just very briefly about what has been applied for and in what the request that we have received, and in the wording of which there is an issue that I feel that privacy should be maintained. That's all. And then we will come back and we can deliberate after that.
And do you need a motion for that, or is that acceptable?
Need a motion?
Motion.
So I will so move.
That's RSA 91A 2, 3, 2.
It's a
2-3.
It requires a roll call
2-3.
vote.
Which number?
No, it's not.
None.
It's RSA 91A 32C.
2C,
Yes.
matters which discussed in public would likely affect the reputation of any person.
That's what you said, Jim.
Second.
Yes.
You have,
Do I have a
well,
second?
I mean,
Do I have a second?
second.
Thank you, Representative.
Discussion?
Yes. Discussion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. From the explanation, I became confused about whether this discussion was going to be on a subject matter that was before the Personnel Committee, or if this is a subject that will come before either the full delegation or an investigative committee.
Well, it is, part of it is the Personnel Committee and part of it could be investigation.
So, Madam Chair, I don't understand the, I'm just still confused and conflicted, because I believe that if it's going to discuss something that's coming before the Personnel Committee, then that is the only body it should come before. If it is something that's going to come before the full delegation or an investigatory committee should one be formed, then I think it would be appropriate for this meeting to discuss it.
Okay. The issue that will be before us is to make a decision if we are going to do an investigation or not. And I need to, that is the issue that we have to decide. And I feel that I would like to be able to do the deliberations in public, whether we are going to do that or not. But in order to give why I think there could be some issues, I have to say a couple of things that are in it, and I don't feel that I can do that in a public meeting without affecting the rights of some of the people involved. Representative Bucco.
Yes, Madam Chair, I think the procedure on this is to cite the provision in RSA 91A3 and 2C, I guess it is, and then call for a roll call vote.
She's done that.
That's what I did,
Okay.
and I'm going to make the roll call vote.
Okay. I didn't, sorry. I didn't
Clerk
hear
is
you say
ready.
that.
If there were questions, yes.
I'd like to go back a step if I might. Do we have a request to form a committee of investigation? Why is this on the agenda?
We do have a request.
Okay. Can I follow up? I heard from the previous representative that it also might be Personnel Committee
It is both.
involvement.
It is both. We've had 2 requests.
2 separate requests,
Yes,
okay.
2 separate requests. And we need to, one of them is obviously the Personnel Committee. The other is whether or not the delegation wishes to do an investigation or if the delegation wants to combine them. So that's what the issue I want to discuss with the delegation, but I would like to at least get the first step over with so that we can move forward and have the discussions.
Oh.
Yes,
I think that the discussion about whether we have a committee of investigation should be in public.
Yes, it will be.
Right, okay.
Yes, as I said, I
Okay,
just.
so, right.
Okay.
So,
I can explain, you'll understand what I can explain.
Get into non-public so you can explain.
Yes, I cannot explain until, I don't want to, I want to protect the people involved, and I just don't think I can do that. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just so we don't go down the wrong road, from reading the RSAs, I don't believe we have the authority to combine the 2. They are 2 distinct committees. The Personnel Committee has a separate
Excuse me, you're getting
place
into
in law.
discussing what we will discuss after this.
I'm not discussing any person, I'm saying
No, I'm not
that
saying the person, I'm saying the discussion we will have will be regarding that. And that I have the opinion of the lawyer and some other things I would like to share.
And then I would hope that I could repeat my question at a later point, because I believe that what we're being asked to discuss as an option is not a legal option.
I'll remind the chair there's a motion on the floor, and I've moved the previous question.
Okay. Question is moved. We have roll call, please?
Representative Ticehurst.
Yes.
My coin?
Clerk will vote yes. Representative Bucco.
Yes.
Representative Butler.
Yes.
Representative Cordelli.
Yes.
Representative Nelson.
Yes.
Representative Comeau.
Yes.
Representative Marsh.
Yes.
Representative Burrows.
Yes.
Representative McDonald.
Yes.
Representative Woodcock.
Yes.
Representative and the chair.
Yes.
Unanimous. We are now in non-public session.
11:12.
Oh, well, I'll leave it.
You have quorum, call quorum. Motion to seal the minutes of the non-public session.
Second.
Indefinitely.
I had suggested 12 months, but others should want to say indefinitely, so I just think it's a simple discussion that had a straightforward outcome. I don't see the need for sealing them indefinitely, so I suggest 12 months.
Madam Chair, I will amend my motion to 12 months.
Okay.
I'll second
A
the
second
amendment.
then? Seconded again? Okay, all those,
Yeah,
oh,
roll
you
call.
want to do roll call? I'm sorry, roll call.
Okay.
This has to-
Representative Ticehurst.
Yes.
Clerk will vote yes. Representative Bucco.
Yes.
Representative Butler.
Yes.
Representative Cordelli.
Yes.
Representative Nelson.
Yes.
Representative Como.
Yes.
Representative Marsh.
Yes.
Representative Burrows. Representative McDonald.
Yes.
Representative Woodcock.
Yes.
And the chair.
Yes.
11-0, the motion passes.
Ready?
Yes.
Yes, I'd like to make a
Representative
motion.
Marsh.
We note, first of all, that RSA 91A7 violation says any person aggrieved by a violation of this chapter may petition the Superior Court for injunctive relief. I'm therefore making the following motion. Since RSA 91A7 gives the Superior Court jurisdiction over violations of RSA 91A, And since RSA 2417 in no way supersedes RSA 91A7, we find this body has no authority to appoint an RSA 2417 committee to investigate alleged violations of RSA 91A, and we do not approve this request. I make that as a motion.
Thank you. Representative Cordelli?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Representative Ticehurst.
Yes.
Representative Bucco.
Yes.
Representative Butler.
Yes.
Representative Cordelli.
Yes.
Representative Nelson.
Yes.
Representative Comeau.
Yes.
Representative Marsh.
Yes.
Representative Burrows.
Yes.
Representative McDonald.
Yes.
Representative Woodcock.
Yes.
And the chair.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Okay.
Question.
Oh, yes.
Could you send that motion over to,
I will send it right over.
thank you.
Okay, we already did the tax anticipation. The progress report on the budget, I have, what I am just looking for is just an idea from people about how close they are to completing their committee work. So I can plan on holding our meetings to begin working on the budget as a whole. And I did request, and you have received a copy so that you all have not just your own departments, but you have all the budgets and the progress on them if you want to begin looking at those. So we had been receiving in our committees, but we didn't have to the end of the year. I know on my committee, until I got to the committee, I had just the first 3 quarters. So I asked for an update. So I think we're really moving fast.
Do you mind if I fill in some blanks, or would you rather
No,
not?
sure, you can fill in the blanks, if everybody had, if you have your reports. There are a few more updates that you might want on some of the other committees and where they completed their reports.
If you, the expenditure budget worksheet packet that you received this morning, if you could turn to page 14, sorry. Page 11, to Public Works,
January 24th, just to
the
make sure.
January 24th printout. Yep.
Page again.
Page 11. The subcommittee approved the DPW bottom line as presented by the commissioners, 249117. And on page 14, the cooperative extension services. The subcommittee vote should read 284291.
Could you repeat that number again? They
Two.
increased it?
Yes, 284291. And the minutes for all of these subcommittees are on the county website if anyone wants to get more detail on that. On page 15, the regional appropriations. The White Horse Addiction Center, 150,000. Child Advocacy Center, 55,000. And the RSVP, 70,000. So,
I'm sorry, what was the White Horse addiction number?
150. And Child Advocacy, 55, and RSVP, 70.
Thank you.
Page 17. That brings your total recommended by the subcommittee to date in the general fund to $17,802,750. Sorry, I have just a couple more. On page 18, the subcommittee recommends the victim services grant as recommended at $32,500. The sheriff department grants number changes to $34,722. And the dispatch center grant was recommended as presented. So we go to the very last page, 26, it changes your grand total. To $30,073,945. And if anybody wanted to see me about the revenue, I have those too.
Okay, Representative Butler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would it be okay if I talk about the Mountain View community budget quickly, because I gotta run
Yeah.
to conference?
Yeah, we're just briefly, I just mainly wanted people to get a quick update of what's going on. I want to know, so we can, when I can start scheduling the meeting, that we can start really working on the full budget.
And for the annex, the BEA-S, and the nursing home, we have completed our review. The subcommittee minutes will be ready shortly, and will get posted. And the budget changes little, and the nursing home did an excellent job of trying to keep costs as controlled as possible. The one thing I think to note is that for the first time in many years, the nursing home with a state review got a deficiency-free survey. And that's an incredible achievement. And we should all tell Howie and his staff how wonderful they are in doing that.
Is Howie still here?
No.
We'll have to send him a note.
Bob, relay that to him?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. Does anyone else have anything they want to share about their committee? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The multi-one met one time and did most of their work. They will be meeting again this afternoon to meet with 3 of the regional agencies. 1 or 2, I can't remember which, we needed further information, and 1 or 2 couldn't make the first meeting. But we also are or were, I'm not sure, waiting to see what the capital budget recommendations were, because our revenue projections depend on whether those are recommended or not.
Thank you. And Representative Eric said that they're about done, they're just waiting, I think, to hear on the sheriff's grant or something, but they are just about done too. Yes.
Multi-2 completed its work, and the minutes, I believe, are posted. We may want to reconsider the line about IDN grants based on what Henry Lippman said this morning, or we may not, but I think the whole delegation can make that decision.
Thank you. Yes.
I had, back in December, submitted a list of questions and requests that weren't acted on, some of which I think are still appropriate. I will send an updated list of questions. And also in our multi-2 discussions, we discussed an organization chart, and the HR director said that she was working on that, so I would like that committee to be aware of that so we can follow up on it. I think it's important. One thing that a number of us have expressed is the need for year-end figures, and that being a critical part of the budget review and discussion for 2020. Any information going forward as to when they intended to close the books on 2019 would be welcome.
Do you have any projection of when that might be? Or I know there's a lot going
The
on right now.
printout you got today is as of current, what has been spent in 2019. I believe they're hoping within the next few weeks to make sure that everything is cleaned up from 2019. Said by the middle of February, so I think that's.
So if we plan to schedule our final reviews of the budget and the recommendations, then we could start them by the middle of February, we should be safe. Good. Yes, Representative Dawn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've noticed going through a lot of these departments that the Medicare, retirement expense, Social Security is moving around, not in the same additions or subtractions as previous years or what has been used. Seeing as we had to transfer money this morning into retirement expense for the jail, just want to make sure that they're adequately adjusted for the pay increases and to make sure everybody's in the same group before we finalize this budget.
To the best of my knowledge, all of those necessary corrections are on this sheet.
Is there anything else? Is there any other business that needs to be brought before the meeting? Is there any public comment?
Oh, yes, James here from the Comeau Sun. Lots of questions. I was wondering, you talked about having a personnel hearing, and it sounded like it would be open to the public, and I was just wondering, when is the hearing? Who does it concern? Can those questions be answered at this time?
Yes, I just, yes, it's, the county administrator has requested a hearing on his release.
And is that scheduled, and how will people know?
January 24th is the schedule for the hearing. February, that's like a month, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say that would be back to the future. Okay.
Yes.
And so my understanding is the committee could reinstate a fired employee or reinstate a suspended employee. They have the power to sort of, I guess, would they be overruling the commissioners or what, potentially?
I'm not 100% sure how that works. Yes, Representative Tyler.
I believe we can point you to the RSA that outlines that, and I'd be happy to do that after the meeting.
Yes. I would like this to.
That's 2810.
I believe it would be, but I'll double check.
Great, thank you.
Are there any further questions?
That's it.
Seeing that, I will close and entertain a motion to adjourn. And just a quick reminder to the executive committee, we have a few more things for us to do. Sorry. We have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, so moved Representative Cordelli, seconded Representative Guerrero. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. Okay, let's get this.
Anyway,